how many. I am Michelle Tregonning. I'm the leader of Mathematics Professional Learning for the New South Wales Mathematics Strategy. And we thought, as always, we would start by playing some mathematics. So I'm going to show you some dots, and I'd like you to think about how many dots you see. Okay, eyeballs ready? So we're hoping that you might be watching this with a colleague. So if you are, please turn and talk about how many dots you saw. If you're alone, you can take a note in your notebook. Would you like to see it again? Okay, eyeballs ready. So you might have seen that there were or are 9 dots. Okay, now what I wonder is how many dots are hidden. Ready? Splat. Can you please turn and talk to your colleague and or write a note in your notebook? And as always with these presentations, please feel free to press pause and restart again when it suits you so that you can chat to your colleagues about the ideas and things that you're thinking as you go through. So now what I'm wondering is, how did you work it out? So typically when we ask students, just like we asked of you, depending on how they worked out the total of the 9 dots, it has an influence how they determine how many dots are hidden. So it's quite common for students to use counting to work out how many dots are hidden. So did you do this too? Did you count how many dots are still visible and then subtract from 9? Or you might have counted backwards from 9? Did you happen to use structure and your skills in conceptual Subitising? What we've learnt with our students is that if we ask slightly different questions, and if we talk about how we saw the 9 before we cover some of them, we can help students use a range of mathematical processes to determine how many are hidden, including but not limited to their skills and understanding in counting. So let's look at how we might do this. So when we ask our students to pay attention to meaningful chunks, not just how many dots there are, but how do you see them, and in fact, where are you finding chunks of meaning? We're asking students to start using and building skills in conceptual Subitising that we can combine with other mathematical processes to be able to quantify the collection as a whole. When we explore how other people see things, this can help reveal the flexibility and creativity inherent inside of mathematics. So before we show you one way of looking, can you now turn and talk to your partner, or even in your notebook, can you see chunks of meaning inside this collection of 9? And if so, where do you see them? So press pause here and then come back when you're ready. Okay, so here's what some students said to us. They said they could see the chunks like this, where they saw 4 on a dice pattern, a bit on its side, and then they could see 3 in an arrow, and we are showing that 3 in green, and 2 more dark blue up the top. And so what's really important to know here is the 4ness of 4 on a dice is what is the most critical attribute rather than its orientation in space. And that's really important because what they're attending to is the attribute that really matters on the dice, which is not how it's orientated in space, but rather that those 4 dots, we can trust that there's 4 every time that we see that. So then when the splat comes, and we're thinking about how many dots are hidden, we can also start thinking about how we saw the collection of 9, the chunks that we saw, and how we can reason our way into determining how many we're missing by thinking about those chunks. So in this case, we could be thinking about, well, I saw 4 on a dice pattern and one of those dots is missing. I saw 2 blue dots at the top and one of those is missing. And I saw 3 as an arrow and one of those dots is missing. And so that's 3 missing dots. And we can unshade it a little bit so that you can see this here. So what's happening here with our thinking, and is it important? And the answer is, in part, what's happening is Subitising, technically conceptual Subitising. But we know Subitising is really important, and we've known this for a while, that Subitising is seen as a really fundamental skill in the development of students' understanding of number. And we can use those 2 ways of thinking about a task like splat, one where we try to quickly count, possibly, and one where we're looking for the structure and patterns and using number facts that we may know in combination with counting to help us articulate the importance of Subitising in building number sense. And in fact, you've probably, hopefully, some of you have just experienced that when we intentionally asked that question of how did you see the dots, and then we thought about how we could use that information to determine how many dots were hiding, we started to increase the sophistication of thinking and enriching the breadth of the mathematics we were drawing from and making connections to. It also reveals to us that when we ask this question, how many, that we can determine the answer using different skills and understanding. And one way is by Subitising. So you might be wondering now,